Root pressure and gutation, the hidden engine of plants. Welcome to another explainer. Today, we're literally diving deep underground into a microscopic world of, honestly, incredible physical forces hidden right beneath our feet. We're going to explore the unseen plumbing system of plants, and, the way they manage it is nothing short of brilliant. Let's get right into it.
So, how exactly do small plants lose water when transpiration is suppressed? We already know plants typically release water vapor into the air, right? But what happens when that usual pathway is just entirely shut down? The plant still has to manage its internal water. Well, the answer to this puzzle is a surprisingly powerful mechanism operating entirely out of sight.
The underground engine, deep inside the roots. To really understand how a plant solves this, we need to zoom all the way in. We're taking a journey deep underground, right down to the microscopic cellular level of the plant's roots. Because this is where the magic starts. Down here in the dark, the plant is basically running a silent underground engine, generating some really incredible physical forces just to keep its fluids moving.
The absolute crucial point here is understanding exactly what this engine is. It's called root pressure. Basically, this is a pressure created by the active secretion of salts and other solutes directly from the root cells and into the xylem sap. See, the plant isn't just passively sitting there soaking up water like a sponge. No, it's actively pumping out salts and solutes, intentionally altering the chemistry inside its own plumbing system.
Let's break down exactly how this mechanical underground engine builds, step by step. First, the salts and solutes are actively secreted by the root cells. Second, they enter the xylem sap, the fluid inside the plant's transport tissue. And third, and this is the real trick, the presence of these solutes lowers the water potential of that xylem sap. By dropping that water potential, the plant fundamentally changes the physical dynamics inside the root. It actively pulls water in, creating this continuous mechanical upward push. Measuring the pressure, the shear force generated. Now that we know how this mechanical engine is built at the cellular level, we really need to talk about the sheer magnitude of what it actually achieves. It's one thing to just say the word pressure, but it's another thing entirely to measure the massive mathematical force these tiny microscopic solutes are generating inside the plant. Just look at the stark contrast in these numbers. Normally, root pressure operates in a standard range of 100 to 200 kilopascals. Pretty solid. But exceptionally, this pressure can spike to a staggering maximum of 800 kilopascals. There is just no way around it. That exceptional maximum is an immense amount of physical force, and it's being generated purely by the active secretion of tiny solutes deep underground. Gutation in the dark, the macro result. All right, it's time for us to zoom back out. We've seen the cellular engine inside the roots, and we've measured that massive pressure. But what does all of this internal buildup actually do? What are the visible physical effects happening above ground out in the macro world? Well, it turns out this intense pressure leads to a very specific physical phenomenon, especially in the dark. And this brilliantly illustrates the direct cause and effect relationship going on here. On one side, we have our internal cause, the root pressure we just explored, and on the other, that leads to the external result, a process known as gutation or exudation. The pressure built up in the roots literally forces water up and entirely out of the plant. Let's clearly define what this is. Gutation or exudation is the loss of liquid water through specialized water-secreting glands called hydrothodes. Because of the sheer force of that root pressure pushing from below, actual liquid water is forced out through these hydrothodes. We aren't talking about water vapor here. This is physical liquid water being visibly pushed out by the plant's internal engine. Now, this doesn't just happen randomly all the time or to every single plant. There's a very specific checklist of environmental conditions that trigger this highly notable nighttime phenomenon. It primarily occurs in small plants, like grasses, and it becomes much more noticeable when transpiration is suppressed. It also requires the relative humidity to be high, and as we mentioned, it typically happens at night. When all these specific factors align, small grasses, suppressed transpiration, high humidity, nighttime, that root pressure actively forces the liquid water right out through the hydrothodes. Which brings us to a really fun takeaway for your everyday life. Next time you see liquid water clinging to the grass at night, or maybe early in the morning when the humidity is super high, I want you to ask yourself, are you just looking at regular old dew, or are you actually witnessing gutation at work? Are you seeing the visible macro result of that powerful invisible underground engine actively secreting solutes and pushing water up through the hydrothodes? Honestly, it completely changes how you look at a simple blade of grass. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and we'll catch you next time.